got a total of 205 rear wheel horsepower. What's up guys, we're back here again with the 2026 Kawasaki ZX-10R. Now a lot of you may have seen our stage 1 dyno video in which we made 190 rear wheel horsepower with the stock pipe on the motorcycle. Then we also did a two brothers test to see exactly what a 3/4 would do and the difference between the two. Now let's not forget, we had that motorcycle for 1 day, meaning we got it the day prior and brought it down the next day and wanted to check out what we can do. And we've been testing many things on the motorcycle, including the tip-in, the infamous blipper issue that we've resolved, heating, cooling, de-restriction, how the bike feels. We've done so many things and we've learned a couple new things, and I think we're gonna make a little more power now. So the first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna test the stock pipe again. You always wanna verify your numbers to ensure everything is 100% before your modifications. Now when I say modifications, we're gonna be taking the stock pipe off, we're gonna be putting an M4 3/4 system on here. Then we're gonna add a DNA high flow air filter. Then we're gonna add velocity stacks. We're gonna put numbers for every single one of these modifications. We're gonna dyno it and verify everything. And then we're gonna put VP race fuel in and see exactly how much power this bike puts down when it's all said and done. So first we're gonna start with our stock pipe, and the fact that we've had a week with this bike now, we're able to test a few things on here, and I think we'll make 1 or 2 wheel horsepower more than the 190 we made on stage 1. If you haven't seen that video yet, it's right there on the top right. So let's see what she does. Okay, and after a quick verification here, we made 3 wheel horsepower more than our stock baseline of 190 the other day for stage 1. Now again, this is with a completely stock pipe, stock air filter, stock everything except our tuning, and we're making 193 to the tire. So that's a great verification. Now that we've finished that, we can take the bike off the dyno, put it on a lift, and we're going to install the 3/4 M4 shorty that the customer provided to us. And since we already pulled the servo motor on this, this is a very easy install because it's a 3/4 system without the header. We're leaving the stock header on there. That means you just disconnect it from the bottom, remove the whole suitcase basically, and install the new exhaust system. And this thing definitely has a louder sound than stock and probably louder than the two brothers. I'll let you guys decide. Check this out. That sounds plenty loud to me. Now let's see how much power it makes. Wrapped up with the M4 and tuning, and what do we make? We made a total of 196 rear wheel horsepower. That means we made 3 wheel horsepower over our stock baseline, and we can see we're making power everywhere across the rev range, except way down here about 3,000 RPM. But you can see we start separating about 6,000 RPM right there, 5,700, and then we make our way out through here, and we're making 7 wheel horsepower there and actually 5 wheel more torque. That's huge in the mid-range there. And we keep going, we're making about the same here. And at the very top end, we're making 8 wheel horsepower over stock and 3 wheel torque over that stock pipe. Overall, these are great gains for just a pipe and some tuning. Keep in mind, stock air filter, stock everything. And now it's time to crack open that dusty airbox. It's brand new. Now it's time to crack open that airbox and replace that stock air filter with a DNA high flow air filter and see if we have any gains from just an air filter on this bike. Air filter tuning done, and what do we get here? We got 196 and 196. Now keep in mind, in red, that's going to be the stock air filter. In blue is going to be the aftermarket air filter. We can see here we're making the same exact power pretty much everywhere until the very top end. Let's kind of zoom in here, huh? Look at this. We're just barely making some peak power over that stock baseline. About 2 wheel horsepower, but it's just up top. Everywhere else, it's about the same. I mean, this can be applied to a run-to-run variance. But up top, I am seeing a little bit of a difference there from that DNA filter. Now, the DNA filter does have more airflow, obviously, than the stock one. You can see the stock one, there's no light going through, and the DNA, there's definitely some light showing through it. So it does flow a little bit more air. So at top end peak RPM, it makes sense it's flowing a little more to the extent of about 2 wheel horsepower. So now we've seen what the air filter can do over stock. Let's go ahead and check out velocity stacks. Crack open that air box one more time, and let's get rid of the stock stacks and put our custom velocity stacks in there and see if we can make any power over the filter only run. Now, I will also note that anytime you do velocity stacks, we strongly recommend that you also change out your air filter. These stacks usually require more airflow than stock allows. So if you just put stacks in your bike and no aftermarket air filter that has more airflow, you're kind of pissing into the wind. So let's see what our velocity stacks do on the dyno. So what do those stacks do? We got a total of 2 wheel horsepower out of those velocity stacks. Now let me also say velocity stacks require some ram air on these motorcycles, and we don't really have a whole lot of that. The whole intake duct we have here that goes down into the motorcycle there maybe simulates about 50 miles an hour. This ain't simulating 150 or anything like that. If it did, we'd see some proper airflow here and we'd see a little more power. But 2 wheel horsepower is good, especially when we're losing nothing down low. Nothing in the mid-range. And we're not really losing anything anywhere here. Maybe 1 wheel horsepower here, no, 2 wheel horsepower right there. But down here, the same. In the mid-range, we're looking the same. Usually you lose a whole lot of power. But up here, that's where we're gaining it. Let's kind of get a zoomed in look here. We're looking at 198 right there versus 195, so that's 3 wheel horsepower. And that's the top end here. This is the racing range where everyone expects stacks to perform. Now, I will also say with velocity stacks, you need to be testing these, especially on a bike like this that has this computer that is very archaic. The ram air compensation that has an ECU is actual trash on this bike. BMW, Ducati, they nailed it. The ram air compensation is perfect. You literally set it and forget it and not even test on the street. On this, it's going to require road testing to ensure the AFR is correct. If your tuner has their Kawasaki ZX-10R and they're telling you everything looks good in the dyno and they're not taking it on the street, it's not fully tuned yet, because that ram air compensation is everything on these motorcycles. It could be reading 12.8 here on the dyno and then read 14.0 on the street. So for 2 wheel horsepower, looks very minute here, but on the street, I guarantee you it's going to perform better than it did stock. So now we've seen that number, let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun here. Let's drain the fuel tank completely to the point where the bike will not start anymore. We'll put some VP racing fuel into this thing, and we'll see how much power this bike makes. All right, so how much power did the Jesus Juice make? We got a total of 205 rear wheel horsepower versus the 198. That's 7 wheel horsepower more than stock. And the gains are everywhere. They aren't just down low. They're in the mid-range. They're in the upper mid-range. They're in the top end. It pretty much mirrors the power band we saw on 91 pump gas, but just makes a lot more power everywhere. That's 8 wheel horsepower up top. That's big. And we're even making 3 wheel more torque. It's pretty obvious this bike is gonna move with this amount of power. Now let's see some comparisons with race fuel. Let's start with the Yamaha R1. And here's the Yamaha R1 here in blue, and we have the ZX-10R here in red. The Yamaha R1, of course, taking an early lead here in the mid-range. I was expecting that. More power and more torque. But as soon as we get to the top end here, you'll notice something. The ZX-10 is pulling away. We got a total of 8 wheel horsepower right here up top. This is huge. This is the entire racing range right here. Only making it 1 there, And it starts pulling away right there at about 13,000 RPM. Now both these bikes feel good on the top end, I'll tell you that right now. But the ZX-10 right here, the numbers don't lie. It's pulling away from that R1. Now let's go ahead and check out the Honda RRR. Now we have the Honda RRR here in blue, and of course the Kawasaki ZX-10R in red. And as you expect for something that's over $30,000 compared to a $17,000 bike, it is making more power. 2-wheel horsepower to be exact. And you can see the power bands are pretty similar between these two bikes. Very similar torque, very similar horsepower. It's just the CBR has a little more RPM, but they look very similar, don't they? We got a little more in the mid-range here with the CBR. But other than that, we've got a very similar power curve. Now let's go ahead and check out the German Gixxer, otherwise known as the S1000RR. Now I can name off what is what here, but it's pretty obvious, isn't it? This is gonna be the S1000RR with that insane shift cam, just making power hand over fist over that ZX-10R. The red lines are very similar between these motorcycles, so we're not seeing a definite winner in the RPM, but in the rest of the power band, the S1000RR is absolutely rinsing the ZX-10R. And not just in horsepower, in torque across the entire band. In fact, over here, it does kind of mirror the torque right there, and we're almost making the same power up here, but the S1000 across the entire band, just an insane bike. Now, one guy said online he wanted us to compare it to the RSV4, so why don't we just do that real quick. All right, there's the RSV4 in blue, the most powerful bike we've had on the dyno to date with race fuel. And then we have the ZX-10 here in red. The RSV4, this is just generational destruction right here. All the way to red line, where the ZX-10R is gaining a little bit there on the red line, but it's not enough. It's too little too late. This discrepancy in power is massive. That's 16 wheel horsepower right there. The Kawasaki ZX-10R, while the dyno is a good tool for it, it really needs to be ridden on the street properly and tuned based on the observations on the street. Like I said before, we completely fixed that jerky blipping issue that we were having with the Gen 7s. People still have it with the Gen 6s, this issue. But we figured that out on the Gen 6, the Gen 7, and that's because we define our own software and our own tables. We see the issues and we can correct them ourselves rather than opening a ticket and saying, hey, there's a bug here, you need to fix this, and they gotta investigate it, and they got a bike on the dyno. We do it all A to B here. And that's another reason why we've had this bike for a week and sorted out problems that people that have had this bike for months cannot sort out. And I think you'll see with our stage 1 full review video, you can see how I'm riding the motorcycle. I let go of the handlebars and downshift. You can see the quick shifter is actually smooth on the way down. And on the way up, that massive power lag that it has in the Gen 7 when you're shifting up, that's gone as well. And we saw that on the dyno too. You can see it's just feeding power. Boom, boom, boom. That's how it's supposed to be. Now for the fun part, let's go ahead and test to see exactly how much power we've gained on this motorcycle and verify it with GPS. And I'll kind of go over some other points as well while I'm riding. So let's get to it.
What's up, guys? We're back and we're testing stage 2 on the 2026 Kawasaki ZX-10R. Now this bike definitely has a little more oomph to it. And the bike is definitely loud. I'll tell you this, the M4 3/4 is not a quiet pipe to put on a bike. So if you want to go for long trips, I can tell you this is not the pipe. Your ears will be ringing by the end of that trip. Now let's kind of go over a few things here. The quick shifter, very fast, very, very fast. Now these are things you don't find out unless you take the bike out in the real world and actually ride the thing after the dyno. A lot of people just dyno it and send the bike on its way, but this is the most important part here. This is the rideability phase. And before today, I went out and did a test pass with an AFR gauge, just to verify in 5th gear, wide open throttle, we're not seeing any lean spots in the bike. We go a lot of the rideability stuff on our stage 1 video. So let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Let's see exactly how fast this bike goes and how much faster it is. We did a 4.9 60 through 130, a 4.9 100 through 150, and 176 miles per hour after our tuning with stage 1, which is a big improvement over stock. Now let's see if we can improve over stage 1 with what we've got now. All right, we got the draggy fired up. We've got our traction control off. I have power on full. We're good to go. Saw the 60 through 130 is a 4.6. We got a 4.3 100 to 150, which is over a half a second improvement over stage 1. Now with that 60 to 130, the second gear start, this bike is really labored. Like I said before, it feels like a bug when I hit second gear and there's like no power in this thing. So I also wanted to see it in its wheelhouse. So we did first gear as well, and that first gear result came out with a 4.1 60 to 130, make you guys feel better about the bike. Now usually on a leader bike, we see the 60 through 130 on a stock wheelbase mirror the 100 through 150 when the bike is fully de-restricted. But on this bike, it's much slower, and that's just due to that second gear that's really lazy, the way the bike is geared, the bike lacking torque. It's just a lot of factors come together, which means second gear is just not a good place to start this bike at 60 through 130, and that's why I tried first gear, and we got much better results. Now, I will also say that was a first try, 60 to 130 at 4.1. I could easily get this thing into 3s with a few more hits. The bike is quick, and when you set these things up correctly, they are very fast. I know the lacking torque doesn't seem like it's an advantage, or the gearing on this, but the gearing is actually set up perfect for the track. For roll racing, the transmission is set up very well on this motorcycle. It just doesn't reflect well in the second gear hit for 60 through 130. And we also set the top speed at 182 miles per hour. I wanted to really wrap this thing out, but I know in the same mile marker we did stage 1, we were seeing about 175. Now in that same spot, we're seeing over 180. So we definitely got faster. 182 mile an hour top speed is definitely massive. Massive over the 165 mile an hour we saw before with bone stock, everything in stock tuning. So massive improvements here for the ZX-10. Overall, I feel stage 1 is a must-have, meaning you buy this motorcycle, you have to do it. Otherwise, you are leaving so much power on the table. Over 100 wheel horsepower at redline. Okay, so that means not peak power to peak power at redline, but even peak power to peak power is an insane amount of power as well. So stage 1, absolute must. Stage 2 is if you're an actual racer, you're trying to do some crazy stuff and get every 10th out of this motorcycle. If you're a regular A to B rider, you're not really taking this thing on the racetrack, you're not racing it much, I think stage 1 is more than enough for this motorcycle. It makes it so much fun. When you get the BT Moto Flash, you're getting something that is second to none in the industry. Like I said, we only take this thing to dyno, but we do hundreds of miles stock, hundreds of miles flash. We see what people like, what people don't like. We make our own tools, we make our own programs, we define our own tables. We do everything in-house to make this bike as good as it possibly can be. Real world testing is probably the most important testing you're gonna do on a motorcycle. Dyno is only part of the equation because no one rides their bike on the dyno. They ride it on the road, they ride it at the track, they ride it at the drag strip. So I think it's gonna wrap up our total review in stage 2 for the 26 Kawasaki ZX-10R. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or ideas for new videos, leave them in the comments and we might do them. Now I'm gonna get this thing back to the customer and relax a little bit. I'll see you guys in the next one.